my amazing wife who's about to throw me some confetti.
Doesn't work. It doesn't work
She's,
for
she's
me.
just raining confetti. Great to be here with you all in our emotional intelligence series. This week, so far, number one, we covered an introduction to emotional intelligence, specifically around what that means and how it affects our life and all the benefits from it. Number two, we dove into navigating emotions, leveraging the mood meter for enhanced self-awareness, which we chatted about yesterday on our live. Then we did a full 1 hour deep dive training on it in our Core 4 community, which was awesome.
It was so awesome.
What was your favorite part?
So yesterday, people started with a go-to of like maybe 3 to 5 emotions that they use.
Mhm.
And between the live that we did yesterday and the course that you taught, the training that you did yesterday in the Core 4 community, what I love the most about the Core 4 training that you did was you saw everyone's minds expand with all the range of emotions they could feel. And instead of it being so black and white and just kind of being either happy or sad or calm or angry, it was this like range so they could see more of the color in their own life and what they can tap into. I think it really allowed them to see how resourceful they can be in moving through emotions instead of outsourcing them to others or to circumstances. We all felt like, whoa, we have this meter and now know how to move between emotions. And instead of just going from, like sad to happy, it was, how do we just go from whatever like the crappiest emotion is, like the worst we could feel, to just like a little bit better, because sometimes it doesn't feel that easy. So I really love, one, just like the range of emotions that people realize they experience, and two, them understanding how to move to just feel 2% better.
Yep.
And how much better that felt. And that it didn't come from the outside, but it came from the inside. It's an internal game. It's our choice, and we have the resources to be able to just move ahead just bit by bit on that scale until we feel whatever emotion is that we actually want to be feeling. And it's not by default, but it's by choice, right?
Yeah.
Love it.
We do that on purpose. We actually train our coaches in Performance Coach University around this, where there's a way to help someone regulate or navigate their emotions, and it's not what most people do. Most of us, and I don't know, I've seen us do it unintentionally, but most of us, you see someone who's struggling or in a bad mood or really in a tough space, and what's the best thing you can do? Either, I know how you feel. Oh, that feels so tough. And then you just leave them there, even though they feel understood and seen and appreciated, which is great. But, you're not helping. They're still stuck in that place. Or you do the old, parent thing, which is like, snap out of it. Just look on the bright side. Just focus on the positive. And that doesn't help either, because that's too big of a leap. That's too much of a journey. And so one thing we were teaching yesterday, especially on today's topic of emotional regulation strategies, the one thing you got to realize is all emotions are useful. A lot of times we like to label good emotions and bad emotions, healthy emotions and unhealthy emotions. We like to judge the emotions instead of, and if you're watching live, you probably want to write this down, instead of realizing all emotions are a signal trying to alert us to something in our life. And how's your hair, love?
It's great.
Just checking out the beauty and fashion tips of the day. Instead of pushing down emotions, or instead of avoiding emotions, or instead of labeling emotions as bad or wrong or unhealthy or any of this stuff, it's just saying, what's this signal? What is it trying to tell me? My body is very smart. It's very intelligent. What is it trying to tell me right now? If you feel upset, what is it trying to tell you? If you feel angry, what is it trying to tell you? If you feel frustrated, what is it trying to tell you? And when you can figure that out, now the question is, and this was a question we proposed yesterday, do you want to stay in that emotion, or would you?
Sorry, I was telling you that I need to get a charger. Can you spotlight yourself?
Yeah, it's really loud when you type.
I'm
No.
glad I got your attention.
Okay, you can stay with me.
No, I need to get a charger. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll narrate. So this concept of, instead of judging the emotions, really simple. Ask, what is it trying to share with me? The second piece is, beyond what is the emotion trying to share with you, ask yourself, okay, do I want to stay in this emotion, or do I want to change? Would I like to feel differently? And if you want to change, realizing it's up to you. You can decide to stay in that emotion, or you can decide to change the emotion. And if you want to change, realizing there's a process. So we taught yesterday in depth this thing where we help people move through emotions. And a big realization a lot of people had in regulating emotions is, it's not the best idea to try to go from I'm really hurt to I'm euphorically happy because I just focused on the good parts of my life. Like that's generally not doable for most people. And so how can we help you regulate emotions? How can we help you adjust? And we worked with a friend who a member, she's in Dubai, and she was feeling tired. And I said, okay, do you want to stay tired? Do you want to feel differently? She goes, no, I want to feel differently. I said, okay, great. If you could have it all your way, how would you want to feel? She said, I'd want to feel excited. And I said, okay, so go from tired to excited. How could we do that? And as we worked through the questions in the process, she went from tired to doubtful. And people are like, doubtful? Why would you go from tired to doubtful? That doesn't sound like a good move. That sounds like it might have gotten worse. And I was like, no. We got to realize this. And we asked everyone there in the training, is doubtful, does it have more energy or less energy than tired? And we realized through watching her physiology that doubtful had more energy than tired did. So even though it sounded like still a negative emotion, it actually brought her energy up. And this is where I had to remind people, anger can be good. Frustrated can be good. Doubtful can be good. Any of these things can be good because they're actually adding fuel and they're adding energy into the human. They're energizing them on our quest to move over to excited. But we got to first get the energy up if we're going to have enough steam to get across the line. So then we eventually, by the end of the call, probably 7 minutes later, she was completely energized and excited about her birthday coming up. And all we did was move her through this process. And so we call that emotional regulation. That's ability to regulate how she was feeling, to change how she was feeling. Yesterday, there was a question that popped up, which is, can you really just change it? Are you really in control, or do emotions just happen to you? Well, there's two forms of thought. You can either say life happens to me, and therefore that dictates how I feel. And in that case, you will never be able to choose how you feel in your lifetime. So I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in a world or in a way that the world gets to decide how I feel. And I'd rather have control. So I'm going to ask a question for everyone watching live right now. I see a bunch of people on Instagram, a bunch of people on all the other platforms. Here's my question. Let me type it.
Thanks for being
Would
here.
you rather have control over your own emotions, or let everyone else in the world control them for you? That's the question. I want to see what people write back real quick. So there's the question. Would you rather have control over your own emotions, or let everyone else in the world control them for you? I'd love to hear the feedback on this. Love to hear the feedback. Would you rather have control over your emotions, or would you rather let everyone else in the world control your emotions for you?
I have a question here from Live On Up on Instagram. She asks, what's the difference between just feeling your emotion versus analyzing the emotion?
Both are useful. Both are useful. One, I mean, feelings versus thoughts. I've had people share this. I'm getting some feedback on Instagram that's saying I'd rather have control over my emotions. Here's my question: why? Few people saying I'd rather have control over my emotions. I'd rather have control over my emotions. Tata Talk says control by ourself. Okay, so there's lots of people saying they'd rather have control. And so here's my second question: why? What's the benefit to you personally? What is the benefit of choosing to have control over your own emotions? What do you gain by deciding you're in control of them instead of the outside world is control of them?
Great.
Tata Talk says emotions are contagious. I'm watching both screens here. So, what's the benefit of choosing to be able to regulate your own emotions, choosing to be able to shift from emotion to emotion? What's the benefit for you? Why? Because I learn and can be grateful about learning. I choose to control my own emotions. Awesome. Why? What's the benefit?
Self-control, inner confidence, power over your life.
There you go. Self control, inner confidence, power over your life. Those are very important. And so,
Well,
this concept of how can you do that? Yesterday, we talked about 3 A's that a friend shared with me, which is acknowledge the emotion, appreciate the emotion, and then adjust the emotion if you feel like you want to change. So acknowledge it, appreciate it, and adjust. That was beautiful. That was my summary of what my wife shared. What were the 3
you have
words you
the brain
used?
of an elephant. I'm so impressed.
What?
I said you have the brain of an elephant. I'm so impressed with how much you can remember. They're really
Elephants,
great. That's a
elephants have
compliment.
very small brains.
No, actually they don't, and they remember a lot. That
Small
is
but
a
mighty.
compliment.
Did you say I have a small brain?
They have a massive brain, and you're able to
Huge.
retain the best information. I'm always impressed. Acknowledge, appreciate, adjust.
Yep. On Thursdays, my wife and I like to go for a walk. I thought we'd
I was
share.
just impressed that you remembered that so well, because I was like, yeah, what were the 3 A's? Oh, yeah, yeah. Like you just can pull it back from 10 years. And me yesterday, I'm like, what was it again?
I thought we were sharing random
Acknowledge,
facts.
appreciate, adjust. It was, well, and I had my own way of saying it, but
How did you say it?
I said, meet it, greet it, learn from it. Meet the
There you
emotion,
go.
greet the emotion. Oh, hello, sadness. What are you doing here? What are you here to teach me? Anger or whatever it is. So it's pretty
Mhm.
similar. Acknowledge that it's there, appreciate it, right? And
So
then
we have
adjust. Same. But thank you. Live On Up says elephants have great memory. Ha ha. I would love that compliment, by the way. Anyway, acknowledge, appreciate, and adjust. So powerful. And I think that does answer one of the questions, which is what's the difference between feeling and analyzing it? One is you don't have to do both at the same time, but if you
yep.
can do both, the idea of feeling it, all emotions felt fully lead back to joy.
Yeah.
One,
Well, the
and two,
difference is it depends on why you're analyzing it. Some people use analysis as as a defensive wall when it comes to emotions. So instead of actually feeling the emotion, they put up a wall to protect themselves because it feels out of control if they have to feel what's going through them or going on in them. So instead, they've learned to go to their head and
mm,
analyze, well, why would I feel this and where would that come from and what might that mean, and they get so in their head of processing it that
yeah,
it's their avoidance strategy to avoid having to feel it. And so
that's so true. I
some
used to
people,
do that
I'm
actually.
not saying all people, I'm saying some people, I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes, and you can ask yourself, do I do this or is this true for me? And if we're honest, all of us will say, well, sometimes all of us do that.
Yeah.
And it's a coping mechanism. It's a strategy to protect ourselves because it's usually a flood of emotions. It's usually a very big emotion that happens. And one strategy people have is to go to their head and start to use analysis and thought to protect them from having to feel
Yeah.
all the feelings that are showing up in that moment.
Yeah.
Um, Usually, it's either they're uncomfortable with such large emotions or they're avoiding that large emotion. They don't want to feel that way. Therefore, they're running from it.
Yeah.
And so, what Amanda just said is really brilliant. It's one of my favorite phrases, which is
Thanks.
all emotions felt fully lead back to joy.
It's a quote from
And
Jack Robbins.
it's not a quote from me. It's a lesson I learned from a group of monks on my 24th birthday. We were hanging out in Fiji.
You're
Uh,
basically a monk, so okay. Anyways, yes. What a great lesson on your
and
25th birthday. That was
24th. But they
I love
shared that
it.
with me, and it was one of my favorite quotes, which is all emotions felt fully lead back to joy. And I was like, what does that mean? And instead of trying to analyze it or run from it or fight it, the concept was, could you experience it? Could you feel it? Could you dance with it? Could you learn from it? Could you just be in it and allow it to exist? And the concept of felt fully. So, not avoided and analyzed, but felt fully. So, step into whatever the emotion is that's coming to life and feel it, fully experience the emotion, turn it up, allow it to amplify and fully be felt. And what their analysis was, when anyone does this and they fully step into it, at some point that emotion turns back to joy and it frees you from the emotion. The old story is, there was a young boy running through the forest and there was this tiger chasing him. And as the boy was running, the tiger chased him, and he kept running and running and running. And eventually he was tired. Eventually he was sore. Eventually his shoe came off and his foot was bleeding. Eventually he was exhausted. Eventually he was hungry. Eventually he was thirsty. And at this state of completely broken down, he ran into this old man, and the old man says, "What are you running from?" And he said, "I'm running from the tiger." And he said, "Why are you running from the tiger?" And he said, "Because if the tiger catches me, the tiger's going to eat me." And he goes, "Oh, that sounds scary." And he says, "What do you think I should do?" And he says, "Well, you should stop running." And he goes, "No, that's crazy, old man." And he kept running. And a few hours later, he came back and saw the old man again, and he's even more tired. He's bleeding more. He's more exhausted. He's more hungry. And he says, "Old man, what should I do? What should I do? Help, help, help." And the old man says, "Stop running. Let the tiger catch you." And he goes, "No, are you crazy?" And he keeps running and running and running until he's completely exhausted and he can't run anymore. And there's nowhere else to run to. There's nowhere else to hide. And the old man says, "You're finally here to learn the lesson." And the tiger catches him and the tiger eats him. And he goes, "There, now you're out of pain." And it sounds crazy, but the tiger is an analogy for the emotion. There's a lot of people who run from their emotions, and running from their emotion is causing them exhaustion. It's causing them pain. It's causing them hunger. It's causing them to wear themselves out and burn themselves out. And if they would just stop and allow the emotion to consume them, they'd realize there's nothing to be afraid about. It's just an emotion. And that emotion will actually lead them back to a place of peace and joy.
That story took such a turn that I wasn't expecting. That's a great story. I really love that story. I have a question from Live On Up on Instagram that I think you'll really have a great answer for. I have an answer, but I'd love to hear your answer. How do you stop analyzing and just feel? It's something I've been trying to figure out because I do tend to overanalyze, and I guess, as you say, to avoid the big feeling.
What's your answer?
So I actually went through this. So this is from personal experience, and there were certain emotions. Stop it. There were certain emotions. Would you please? There are certain emotions that had a lot of power over me. Not a lot, but there are a few, enough that I would overanalyze them. And I didn't realize I was actually trying to avoid the emotion. I was trying to make sense of it and logic my way out of it. And so, what stood behind that? And the question I would ask you is to, again, lean into that emotion in a way that you allow it to share the lessons, it's there to teach you, right? So what does that mean? For example, one of my like emotions I struggled with was like I had like was regret. I did not want to feel regret at all, and I would do a lot to avoid it. And so um the question that you want to ask this emotion is like, what's the fear? Like, why aren't you allowing yourself to feel that emotion? What's the fear behind it? And I'm so grateful I was able to work through a coach with this. Um, and so, in diving into what's the fear behind that emotion that you're trying to logic yourself out of feeling, or you're trying to, that you're overanalyzing. And when you understand what the fear is, then you kind of like, instead of jumping into it, you start to practice experiencing that emotion in micro bits, because sometimes it's that big feeling or big experience of it you're running away from, right? Instead of like, let's use this. I'm going to try this out. I don't know if it's going to work, but like, let's try this tiger analogy. And instead of the tiger like fully just eating you, what if you just went and you looked at pictures of tigers, you started reading about tigers. You went to visit a tiger that was in a where you were protected, or not protected, but like it wasn't a tiger chasing you, but you were able to watch a movie of a tiger and then go see a tiger in real life, but from a distance. Like, it's this way of experiencing the emotion in micro bits, right? In little nibbles, or microdosing that emotion or whatever. I think that word is so funny, but and then eventually getting more and more comfortable with that emotion in a way that it loses its power over you. And I found that so good. So for me, it was regret. And what it looked like was starting to acknowledge all the little moments and areas of life where regret could show up, and inviting it to show up in the smallest of ways. And then eventually I realized this isn't that big of a deal. And I could like up it a little bit, right? And eventually it just completely, the power it had over me completely diffused. It's gone. Now I'm like, yeah, sure, maybe I regret it, but regret certain things, but whatever. Instead of being like this powerful feeling over me. So that's one thing I would share. Do you have something?
A few things. I remember when I was in high school over spring break, I saved up my money and flew to, I think it was Denmark or Stockholm, to go to a new code NLP certification training. And one of the things it was working with is gradual sensitization techniques, which is exactly what you're talking about. It was taking someone who had a deep rooted fear or phobia, meaning even the words of saying it would cause them to go into shock or fear, or their emotions would shut down. And it was saying, okay, how do we over time create an experience that allows them to start to become connected and or have the ability to work through these big emotions in a way that's useful. And so they had techniques similar to what you were saying, but they had broken it down in the stages of how to move someone through this process, so that in the beginning, if you said the word snake, they would freak out.
Yeah.
But then at the end, you could have them holding a snake in their hand that's alive and crawling around, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, he looks kind of fun, no big deal." And so it's the ability to, at some point, it has this huge reaction in their nervous system, but then over time, it just is. And there's techniques you can do through coaching or different types of trainings that allows you to take back the ability to navigate these emotions. And again, we're talking about navigating emotion, emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
that process. And the original question that came up, which is, what's the difference between analyzing it and feeling it? The example you just shared was, hey, I'm not comfortable. Your behavior is saying, I'm not comfortable experiencing all of this emotion right now. I am comfortable with a piece of it, but not all of it. That's too much. And so it's going, okay, how do I learn to dance with this emotion? How do I learn to get comfortable with a little bit more over time? Not all of it, but a little bit more of it. And then eventually at some point you're like, yeah, that emotion's great. I dance with it. We hang out. It shows up. It's great. It's my BFF. Like we're good to go. But in the beginning, it feels overwhelming. It feels too much. And it's usually because we've labeled that emotion right, wrong, good, bad, better, worse in some way. And so we've created a belief system, we've created a thought process around that's not a good emotion, or I just don't like that emotion, or that emotion's wrong. I'm not supposed to feel that. And because we've labeled it, and because we've judged it, and because we've made that part of ourselves something that's not okay, we tend to fight when it shows up instead of stepping into it and saying, wow, I really feel this way. Um, when you step into it, the question of today of emotional regulation would be, how can you fully step into it? And then watch, there's a little asterisk, without your fear coming true. Because most of the time, the other reason why people don't want to fully step into it is because there's a fear of what might happen. A fear of what might happen. What happens if I fully am engulfed by this emotion of regret or anger or frustration or sadness or hurt or whatever the emotion is that's welling up? What happens if the tiger eats me and I'm consumed by this emotion? And then we create false scenarios in our head of like, oh, I might do something crazy, or that might occur, this might happen. And we create this narrative that makes it even worse. For most of us, Jessica said this over on Instagram, which is, I have a hard time letting go of the need to wanting to control my emotions. But as the story pointed out, the moment we let go of controlling, we can find the gift from feeling the emotion. There's
Yeah.
truth in that. The moment you stop trying to control it and you just step into it and go, I'm gonna acknowledge it. What's up, anger? What's up, sadness? What's up, frustration or regret? I see you're there. I'm gonna appreciate it. What can I learn from you? What can I appreciate about this emotion? What is the signal from this emotion? I'm gonna appreciate it, acknowledge it, learn from it, and then ask the question: do I want to stay in this emotion? Yeah, it's not that bad. It's not as scary as I thought. It kind of serves its purpose. Or do I want to change this emotion? Would I rather feel differently? And if you'd rather feel differently, then that concept we did the deep dive training for our Core 4 community yesterday on of here's a tool. Here's how you can actually change this emotion. And I'll warn you, it's not just focus on the positive and snap out of it. Like that doesn't work. You need to gradually adjust it. But if you do that, if you use that tool properly, it's life changing. And all this comes back into what we're talking about today in our emotional intelligence series, which is techniques for managing intense emotions in personal and professional settings. So all of us, and let me ask, when's the last time you had a really intense emotion come up? Either business or life, but something happened and you had a really intense emotion come up. And what did you do? Did you analyze it? Did you run from it? Did you suppress it? That doesn't work. That turns into a volcano later. Did you run? Did you just feel it? Did you stop, allow it to engulf you, allow the tiger to eat you, fully experience it, acknowledge it, appreciate it, choose to adjust it, adjusted your emotion, and then kept moving forward? What did you choose to do when this giant emotion caught you or was chasing you? I'm really curious to see what people say in the chat box. What did you do the last time you had a big emotion come after you in life?
What'd you do?
I'm trying to think back. When's the last time I had a big emotion show up? Very recently it happened. Mary says I allowed myself to feel it fully. Very cool. And Mary, when you did that, what happened? P.S. There's a few people on here who are constantly running from the emotion or trying to analyze it. So to have a brave human who stopped and allowed the emotion to be fully felt, what happened when you did that? I wish I could bring you live over here so you can tell the tale. But I'll check the chat box. What happened when you allowed yourself to fully experience that emotion? I'm trying to think, when's the last time I had a really big emotion well up?
I think the beauty is sometimes it's hard to remember because if you have really practiced mastering emotional intelligence, and you allow yourself to really feel it and let it go, and then it's hard to even recall back to what it was, I think, right?
Well, here's one.
Yeah.
I've had an immense amount of excitement build up in the last couple days. Barb says she lashed out the last time a big emotion built up.
Yeah.
So that's another strategy people use is emotion builds up. Usually it's not the lashing out or the attacking is usually not because the emotion just showed up for the first time.
That's right.
Usually when that part happens, that behavior occurs, it's because that emotion has showed up before and we were like, not right now, I'm busy. And we kind of
Yeah.
like stuffed it down. And then it showed up again and we were like, hey, I told you not now. And we like shoved it back down. And that's called suppressing. So we're suppressing this emotion and suppressing the emotion and suppressing the emotion. And then at some point, you get to meet an alternate version of yourself where it's so built up that someone looks at you and does something random like says hi and you're like, what's wrong with you? You're like, oh my god, I totally didn't mean that, I'm sorry. And they're like, what the hell, I said hello. You're like, can't you see I'm doing something, leave me alone. Like,
Yeah.
and the key is that was not the cause of that lashing out. The cause of that lashing out literally was from all the times we kept suppressing it instead of allowing ourselves to feel it. Jessica says, I'm feeling big emotion right now of tiredness and overwhelm. Totally happens. Mary says, it was very uncomfortable and painful, but it slowly dissipated. And the more I paid attention to it. So the more she allowed herself to feel it, it was uncomfortable at first, but over time, it literally started to dissolve or dissipate. That's a really important lesson. Let me bring that over here so everyone can see it. So here's what she said. It was very uncomfortable and painful, but it slowly dissipated the more I paid attention to it and stopped trying to run from it. That's really, really important. Jessica has a great share over here. Let me bring this one over. Jessica shared, let's see, she said, I'm going through a big emotion right now, but I'm seeing how the moment I allowed myself to feel the emotion, it allowed me to find time to actually catch this talk. And it really has started giving me a feeling of peace, just feeling the emotion. Isn't that beautiful?
Oh, I love that.
It's so beautiful.
Cool.
It's like when there's power in that, if you can stop and experience it instead of running from it or hiding from it and or repressing it. Repressing is one of the other bad habits we have around emotions as humans is I don't know if you've experienced this, but we've been so busy that we don't have time to feel this emotion is another phrase people use. And so they get busy, and the emotion starts to well up and they go, not right now, I'm busy, I got to get this done. And they just repress it. They shut it back down and shove it somewhere in their nervous system.
I wonder, I cannot relate to that. It seems if you don't want to experience it, it feels like it would be a coping mechanism for sure. I feel like I wonder if men do that more than women. When I'm feeling something, like it's pretty hard to be like, I don't have time for this because I can't ignore it. My go-to used to be to analyze it. Now it's just learning how to better communicate. And like what I think Barbara said, that lashing out, like letting it build up. I did notice when I'm about to burst, it was not because of that one thing. It was a stacking of things. And so getting more comfortable with how to acknowledge, appreciate, and adjust. And then
what is it? Greet, meet, and learn from?
Yeah. Meet, greet, teach, or learn. Yeah. Thanks. You're funny.
I was trying to remember.
I love you. Thank you. I like it. I like the A's.
Acknowledge, appreciate, and adjust, or meet, greet, and learn. Both.
I have one more comment. Someone said it's funny because I always thought it's funny because Um, this person on Instagram used to, I don't know your name, I'm so sorry. It says live on up. Used to journal and analyze the feeling. I always thought that was feeling and processing the emotion. And I think that's important too. This doesn't look the same for everyone, whether
So
you're journaling or working out, and that's where you feel the emotion and you let it out and you're crying on the treadmill and then you're bursting into laughter or whatever that looks like.
yeah,
No, you don't do that.
totally. Well,
But
well,
it's different for everyone, and journaling is a way to still feel the emotion. I have
yeah,
definitely some teardrops on some journal pages, and I wasn't overanalyzing it. I was just working with it, working through it.
that's right. I call in coaching, we call it dancing with the emotion.
Yeah.
And dancing looks different. I don't know if you've ever gone and watched other people dancing, but if you observe enough different humans dancing, you realize they all do it differently.
Mhm.
And I mean, you can stand on the side of the dance floor and call it out and be like, you're doing it wrong. Or you can get on a dance floor and bust a funky move and see what kind of dance moves you have.
Mhm.
And what Amanda was saying is everyone dances with their emotions differently.
Mhm.
Some people, they want to breathe through their emotions. Some people
Mhm.
want to dance through their emotions. Some people want to get in nature and work through their emotions. Some people want to sit with someone and talk through their emotions. Some people want to, um,
Some
you know,
toddlers wanna scream through their emotions.
yeah, some
I
people
know
want to scream through
one.
their emotions. Some people want to go work out their emotions. I think
Yeah.
one of the most interesting things I've seen is someone described and they said, why does it happen this way? And a doctor actually analyzed it, but they said, why is it that if you go for a really intense run or a really intense workout or I've seen it happen at Soul Cycle
Yeah.
where they're like really pushing you and you're
Mhm.
up and down and up and down and up and down and moving and doing whatever the move is. And then all of a sudden you just see someone bawling like boosh, waterworks. You're like, where did that come from? Like, we're in the middle of a workout. How do you have
Yeah.
time to cry? And all it was pent up emotion. And one of the coolest things I've ever seen, I believe it's a form of somatic therapy where it believes that emotions are stored in our physical body.
Yeah.
And so I saw two different people. One of them was a singing person who they learned how to listen to the human voice as if it was an instrument. And just like you tune a guitar where you go ding, 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 and then you turn it and go ding, 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 and then you turn it and go ding, ding, and it makes a different noise. They would listen to a human's voice and say, here, sing these notes.
Oh, so
La,
good.
la, 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 la. And they would have a human do it. And I remember there was this lady who did it and it went la, 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 la. And he's like, oh, that's interesting. Try it again. La, 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 la. And he goes, oh, play this note. And he played the one she missed. Ding, 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 ding. And she was like, ah, and she just couldn't make that noise. And he went, oh, here, come over here real quick. Sit on the ground. Hold your legs up. Do boat pose. Move your arms like this. Twist like this. And he goes, now try. Ding, 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 ding. And she went, ah, and almost got the note. And he goes, use your other hand. Go like this. Now move like this. Now try. And all of a sudden, she went, la, and hit the note perfectly. And then, boom, tears. And everyone in the room is like, what the hell kind of voodoo
Yeah.
magic was that?
Yeah.
And what his belief was, I don't have to know what she's been through. I just know for a human being to not be able to make that sound, that means there's tension right here in their body.
Yeah.
And if I can move them in a way that will release that tension, the note will be able to be sung.
Yeah.
And she sang the note perfectly, unrealizing she had years of abuse and pain that had been stored right in that part of her body. And the moment he helped her release that tension in her physical body, it released everything that had been stored there for years.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So there's so many ways to work through big emotions. Again, the simplest thing is to meet, greet, and learn from them, or acknowledge, appreciate, and then choose. Do you want to stay in that emotion or do you want to adjust? Again, this is our series on emotional intelligence. our deep-rooted belief is if stuff like this was shared with us at a younger age in life, many of us would have been able to navigate this stuff so much better throughout our years.
Yes.
We're on a mission that we're doing some math of how we're going to do it, but we want to reach 1 billion young people. In order to do that, I think we need to get to about 40 million teachers to gift them our coaching tools for teachers program we're building. And in order to do that, I figure teachers don't have a whole lot of money. So we're doing a buy one, gift one. So for anyone who joins Performance Coach University to learn these types of tools for their own life and self-coaching, and then to help coach other people through it, every time someone signs up for PCU, we're going to have them sponsor or acknowledge and pick a teacher who they believe would love these tools. And we're going to gift that teacher the program as well. That way, more young people through a teacher can get access to these tools. And again, someday in the future, my wife asked me this morning, how long until we get to 1 billion? And I said, I have no clue how long it's going to take to get to 1 billion, but we're working on it. And so far we have
maybe 10 years.
Yeah. Jessica says, I'd love that. Where can we sign up? If you want to sign up, you can go to performancecoachuniversity.com/apply. And you can set up a call with Amanda to talk about all the details and see if it's a fit. Bianca says, amen to that. We need to have emotional mastery taught early in life. Absolutely.
Yes. Woo.
It is so very important.
Yeah. Let's chat. Let's reach 1 billion.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
1 billion young people need these tools.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for hanging with us today. It's been fun. What a great chat. All right.
Whatever platform you're watching us on, if this is useful, please share it. We'd really appreciate that. Or tag someone who would really find value in this.
True. Yep. Okay.